Throughout this learning opportunity, we will focus on examples of scaffolds that already exist within EL education lessons using Lesson 2 from Grade 6, Module 3, Unit 1, as well as determine where additional scaffolding may be necessary in order to meet the needs of your students. In this video, we will be focusing on Lesson 2 in Module 3, Unit 1, titled Introduction, The Ideas of Charles Darwin. Each EL lesson breaks the lesson down into sections: the opening, work time, and closing. EL provides scaffolds within each section of the lesson to support students who may need additional assistance. In the opening, students are asked to review their homework, which focuses on analyzing how Mark Kurlansky introduces his ideas of fish depletion in the first few pages of the text. Students use the back-to-back face-to-face protocol to share their thinking. EL mentions that reviewing homework holds all students accountable for reading the text and completing their homework. In the opening, students are also being introduced to the learning targets for this lesson. According to EL, posting learning targets allows students to reference them throughout the lesson to check their understanding. The learning targets also provide a reminder to students of the intended learning behind the lesson. Discussing and clarifying the language of the learning targets helps build academic vocabulary. As we move into the work time portion of the lesson, EL has provided a few scaffolds within the instruction. Students are asked to read and take gist notes on a section of the introduction in World Without Fish. Students first listen to the teacher read the section of the text aloud. According to EL, hearing a complex text read slowly, fluently, and without interruption or explanation promotes fluency for students. They are hearing a strong reader read the text aloud with accuracy and expression, and are simultaneously looking at and thinking about the words on the printed page. The teacher should be sure to set clear expectations that students read along silently in their heads as you read the text aloud. After listening to this read, students are then asked to take gist notes with their triads. Remind students to use the strategy of context clues to identify the meaning of unknown words. According to EL, allow students to grapple with a complex text before explicit teaching of vocabulary. After students have read for gist, they can identify challenging vocabulary for themselves. Asking students to identify challenging vocabulary helps them monitor their understanding of a complex text. When students annotate the text by circling these words, it can also provide a formative assessment for the teacher. When students are finished with their gist statements, they return to a whole class discussion on some difficult vocabulary. Many of these words have common roots that will help students in defining them. Consider providing a list of common prefixes, roots, and suffixes to students to refer to when analyzing vocabulary. As students continue through the work time in the lesson, the teacher is asked to guide students through answering text-dependent questions pertaining to the section of the text they just read. According to EL, asking students to discuss challenging questions before recording them helps to ensure that all students have an idea about what to write and can give students confidence in their responses. Some students may benefit from having access to hint cards, small slips of paper or index cards that they turn over for hints about how and where to find the answers to text-dependent questions. For example, a hint card might say, "Look in the third paragraph." Some students may benefit from having key sections pre-highlighted in their texts. This will help them focus on small sections rather than scanning the whole text for answers. In the closing of this lesson, students are introduced to their homework assignment, which continues their analysis of how Kurlansky conveys his ideas about fish depletion in the section of the introduction students worked through today in class. Consider providing a scaffolded version for students who are having difficulty with this task. An example will be provided on the following slide. Some additional scaffolds that have been created for your use are linked to this slide. The first scaffold provides a hint for each of the text-dependent questions students are asked to answer. Consider providing the scaffold for students who are having trouble locating the text evidence for each question. The second scaffold is for the homework assignment. This version provides guiding questions to get students thinking off on the right start.